It's looking like a chilling Halloween. How low temperatures drop for trick-or-treating and the next chance we have for rain.
And healthcare hikes. Insurance premiums are set to increase by 30% for nearly 1 million North Carolinians. How the new rates will affect people in our state who need coverage the most. Then, candy caution. Officials are warning about the dangers of candy laced with THC or worse as kids head out for trick-or-treating. We hear this every year, but how concerned should you really be? It is perhaps one of the most important forecasts of the year. What will the weather be like on Halloween for trick-or-treating? Thanks for joining us here at 7 o'clock. I'm Dan Haggerty. The weather does have a few treats for us out there this year. No tricks, fortunately. Things are going to look cool and clear tomorrow night. Kat Campbell joining us now with this good news. Again, though, it will get cold if you're out pretty late. You'll need a jacket.
Yes, at least maybe some long sleeves underneath the kids' costumes if you're able to pull that off. When you start trick-or-treating, it's going to be really nice. Temperatures are going to be in the low 60s for most of us. 5, 6 o'clock, 58 in Roxborough. But the sunset will bring a big change for us. So as we move on throughout the evening, by 7 o'clock, we're down to 55 in the Triangle, 57 Fayetteville, 52 in Roxborough. And by 9 o'clock tomorrow night, we could be down to 47 in Roxborough, 49 in South Hill, 50 in Durham and Southern Pines, and 52 in Fayetteville. That's when you'll be glad you've got the long sleeves or a jacket. The sun sets at 6:19 tomorrow, and the good news is the moon's about 80% illuminated this year, so that's going to help with some moonlight for the trick-or-treaters and their safety out there. I'll have a closer look at our next weather maker and your weekend as a whole coming up.
The moonlight is huge. Great news there. Thank you, Kat. We'll talk to you soon. Let's stay on the subject of Halloween for just a bit, shall we? Because every year we hear the same warning. Keep an eye on your kids' candy in that trick-or-treat bag because they might have drugs in them. Well, law enforcement is re-upping that warning for us tonight. WRAL's Heidi Kirk is live in Raleigh covering this for us. She spoke to authorities about this, Heidi. As a parent, I want to be careful, be diligent, but I also wonder sometimes, is this a real thing? Are people actually handing out THC candy to Halloween kids?
Well, Dan, it's a great question. I'm here to tell you no. In our area, it's really not happening. In fact, we checked in with the Attorney General's office, and we were told that they're aware of some cases nationwide, but not here in our own community. But nonetheless, local law enforcement are issuing those warnings. And in just a few days, actually starting tomorrow, kids are going to be headed through neighborhoods just like this one, checking out the Halloween decorations, of course, getting candy. And law enforcement officials want parents to be aware what ends up in their kids' buckets. Now go ahead and take a look at this. These products look like candy using bright colors, fun flavors, but if you look closer, you'll notice some of them have THC in them. Plus, drugs like fentanyl are produced in rainbow colors. Now, if they end up in this candy supply, some of these things could be deadly to a child. So local law enforcement officials are sharing this message with parents this Halloween.
Any parent, I would recommend to just look over your kid's candy. If it's not in a known sealed package, throw it away, contact your local law enforcement agency.
Now, it is worth noting we checked in with lots of different sheriff's offices just within the last few hours. Some of them said they have heard of cases of kids getting these THC products, just not necessarily around the Halloween time and when you think about going door to door. So overall, it's a good message for people to be aware of really year round. Heidi Kirk, WRAL News, live in Raleigh.
All right, Heidi, good stuff. Thank you so much. As Heidi mentioned there off the top, that there have been incidents around the country of Halloween candy that ends up having THC in it. And we looked around and we did find quite a few of those cases. Just last week, actually, investigators in Michigan found these snacks of candy knockoffs that look identical in some ways to the real thing. Doritos, Lay's, Cheetos, Airheads, Gushers, Nerds, Starburst. And it turns out all of them contain THC and or psychedelic mushrooms. So police found these in someone's house. They confiscated them. But we should note that there was no evidence here that the people responsible, the people who had these, intended to give them to children in any way. Last year in Washington State, an 8-year-old did go to the hospital after eating what appeared to be Nerds gummy clusters. He got them while trick-or-treating, but the candy did have THC in it. Police said that they had not seen a case like that in 21 years. In 2023, a parent in Wisconsin found these Stony Patch gummies in their child's trick-or-treat bag. Police called this one an isolated incident. And in 2022, a mom in Missouri found cannabis gummy worms in her 5-year-old's candy stash that they got from a trunk or treat event. And police say this situation was an accident. Now, there are lots of other examples of kids finding candy in their house and then bringing it to school or something like that, sharing it with their friends, only to find out later that it was infused with THC. And in all of those examples, investigators determined it was an accident. They didn't mean for this to happen. In fact, we could only find one case where someone was accused of handing out drug-laced candy to kids on purpose, and this happened in 2022 in Winnipeg. 2 adults handing out candy to trick-or-treaters that looked like Nerds rope, but actually had THC, and those people were arrested and then charged. So yes, it is extremely unlikely that someone gives your child THC candy on purpose. But accidents can happen. They happen all the time, in fact. And when it comes to THC edibles, they are happening more and more often. A study published in the journal Pediatrics found reports of kids aged 6 and younger consuming THC went up 1,375% between 2017 and 2021, from about 200 cases to more than 3,000. The overwhelming majority of those cases, nearly 98%, happened in the kid's home. So the point is, kids do get a hold of THC-infused candy all the time. It just very rarely happens on Halloween specifically. So it's something us parents just have to keep an eye on. Go through your kid's candy bag if it makes you feel safer. If your kid does get their hands on any of these candies, though, if they eat something with THC, call poison control. Take them to the hospital. Now let's get to your quote of the day. Republicans would rather shut down the government than extend ACA tax credits, and there can be no negotiations while Democrats hold the American people hostage with their government shutdown. 2 for the price of 1 tonight in our quotes of the day. One from a Democrat, the other from a Republican. Both sides going back and forth over who's to blame for the government shutdown. While lawmakers point fingers, we're going to look into the actual consequences to everyday people. Affordable Care Act plans, for instance. The premiums there are about to go way up for about 1 million North Carolinians. WRAL's Kirsten Clark heard from a family who depends on that program and took their concerns to politicians.
Open enrollment begins on November 1st. That's less than 2 days away now. That's when many people will see those hefty rate increases. Meanwhile, politicians on both sides of the aisle are pointing fingers. Nearly 30%. That is how much health care premiums will rise on average for insurers who offer ACA plans in North Carolina. I spoke with Kira Kroboth, who told me her family depends on the Affordable Care Act.
How are you feeling right now, knowing what's at stake here?
We have honestly been dreading this for months. We are anxious to see what it's going to be and to figure out how we're going to afford it.
And COVID-era enhanced tax credits, the ones that helped people pay for premiums, will expire in December. In a press conference Thursday, Democratic State Senator Gail Adcock called it a health care crisis that Republicans created and are failing to fix.
This was completely avoidable, but D.C. Republicans would rather shut down the government than extend the ACA tax credits and lower health care costs.
She pointed to Republican candidate for U.S. Senate Michael Whatley as someone who has supported the shutdown. Whatley's spokesman responded in a statement, placing the responsibility on Democrats, saying there can be no negotiations while Democrats hold the American people hostage with their government shutdown. Here's the truth. Republicans have already passed a clean continuing resolution to keep the government funded at current levels. More rate hikes could be on the way, depending on how the ongoing federal government shutdown is eventually resolved, while families must decide how they will pay for the new rates or drop their coverage. The average enrollee will see their costs rise about $58 per month after the subsidies expire. The new rate increase will be added on top of that. In Raleigh, Kirsten Clark, WRAL News.
Thank you to Kirsten. Now let's get you caught up on some of the other big headlines from today. These are the 5 things you should know right now. Investigators believe that the tow truck you see here is the vehicle involved in a crash that killed a lineman in Johnston County, James Rudzik. Rudsky, I should say, worked for Pike Electric. Highway Patrol says the truck ran a stop sign last night on Live Oak Church Road, then hit a low-hanging wire and caused Rudsky to fall to his death. That driver then took off. Another lineman went to the hospital with some minor injuries. Officers are looking for the driver who crashed into a utility pole in Durham, knocking out power to hundreds of people. This happened on North Roxborough Street near Monk Road. Police say the drivers abandoned the wrecked cars, and they appear to be stolen. More than 500 fake Labubu dolls, say it ain't so, were found at the North Carolina State Fair, as well as several college homecomings and other events around the state. The dolls either had missing or broken parts. This was part of a large counterfeit bust, finding more than $1 million worth of merchandise like this. Help from North Carolina has landed now in Jamaica this afternoon. Samaritan's Purse loaded tens of thousands of emergency supplies on a plane and flew it to the area hit hard by Hurricane Melissa. The group also sent 32 disaster relief specialists to help out on the ground there. A second flight is expected to take off tomorrow. NC State's new chancellor is officially on the job. This is Kevin Howell. He's been working for months, but he took the oath of office there today. Howell is the only black chancellor in school history. He also graduated from NC State. Congratulations. Can a private school expel a student because of something that the parent said or did? That's the central question in a case before the state Supreme Court. And the answer could have consequences not just for private schools, but private businesses in general. And you got to stick around for tonight's One Last Thing. Scientists in downtown Raleigh discovered a new dinosaur. We're back in about 2 minutes. Can a private school expel a student because of something the parent said or did? Tonight, the state Supreme Court is working to answer that question. A Charlotte family says their kid got the boot after the parents publicly clashed with administrators over some COVID policies and diversity issues. The school says, so what? Private schools have the freedom to do that, to decide who is and isn't part of their community. But this case has drawn some attention. It's drawn in lawmakers, national advocacy groups, even the Catholic Church. And the outcome could affect not just private schools, but any private business that decides the customer isn't always right. I spoke with our state government reporter, Will Doran, to help us understand what's at stake. All right, Will, let's start from the top. What is the family saying here, and what is the school's argument?
So this really all goes back to the middle of the pandemic, and the family had some complaints about the school's mask rules, but especially about things that they were doing about racial justice. Obviously, it was the middle of the Black Lives Matter movement. They felt like teachers were presenting anti-white materials in the class and that they were focusing too much on diversity in their admissions and things like that. And they said that they had concerns about what that could lead to the school down the road. They believed that the trustees of the school had wanted to hear that and had invited them to make these concerns public, but then turned around and framed some of those concerns as being racist. And when they continued making those complaints and raising those issues, then the school eventually said, we don't think this is a good fit anymore, and your children are expelled.
So the family feels like they're being discriminated against, but the school is arguing, look, we're a private school, private business. We can do what we want. We can teach what we want, and we can have the people come and be students and families here at the school who we choose to. And there's plenty of precedent, I guess, that backs that up.
Exactly. The school's argument was, look, courts here in North Carolina have said for over 100 years that private schools can pick and choose who they want to be in their student body, and that they have a mission, and that mission needs to be focused, and so they can choose who they want to be part of their school to focus that mission.
Now, this family seems to be on a mission as well, because they're keeping this fight going despite losing at the first couple phases of the court system. Why are they continuing this process?
Well, they want their day in court. They were denied a trial because the judge found that they had failed to state any valid legal claims originally. And as you said, they lost at the Court of Appeals. They're now at the Supreme Court. This is a wealthy family and a very well-connected family as well. They believe that they have a chance here at the Supreme Court. And they've given hundreds of thousands of dollars to Republican politicians in the last few years here in North Carolina, and they receive support in court from a lot of those. We've had multiple members of Congress weighing in on their behalf. plenty of state lawmakers weighing in on their behalf, groups like Moms for Liberty who are backing them up, saying, look, Supreme Court, this family has been wronged. You need to let them have their day in court to make their case.
But boy, that's a fine line to walk for Republicans, because many Republicans on one side, in one breath, would say, we are against woke and these sorts of things being in schools. We've heard that for a while now. And then the other is a core to the Republican belief, which is that businesses do have a right to run the business that they want to run. And we have seen those types of ideas run their way all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. So how are people walking that line?
Yeah, it is a very thin line to try to walk, and they are trying to walk that tightrope. We saw in some of the briefs from the GOP politicians that have been weighing in saying, look, we still do believe that schools in general, private schools, should be able to expel who they want, reject who they want, accept who they want, but in this one specific case, please rule on the family's behalf, because we think that there are facts specific to this case that do deserve a closer look. Now, the school's argument, of course, is that you can't just do that. That creates a precedent that could then, harm not just schools around the state, but all sorts of businesses who want to cut ties with, customers who are unhappy with them.
All right. Interesting. We'll see where it goes. All right, well.
Let's take a look at the all-important Halloween forecast. It's going to be a beautiful day tomorrow. We got some sun today. It's going to be a bright, sunny day, but breezy tomorrow. High temperatures are in the mid-60s, 64 in Raleigh and Durham, 63 in Roxborough, and 66 degrees in Fayetteville. It's a beautiful day out there. As we move toward the evening, though, temperatures do begin to cool down a bit. By 6 o'clock, we're at 58 degrees. We'll wake up to temperatures in the 40s in the morning. So just layer up tomorrow. You'll need the extra layer in the morning and again during the evening for trick-or-treating as temperatures dip into the mid-50s. A live look at downtown Raleigh, the Natural Sciences Museum. I was just there earlier checking out the new dinosaur discovery. It'll be a fun place to go tomorrow or over the weekend. It's free to visit. You can check out the spooky new species they discovered. And we've got Melissa that's moving toward Bermuda, but not a direct hit for the island. More than likely, the cold front will help to sweep it out to sea and keep it far away from the U.S. Our next weather maker is behind the front. We've got this dip in the jet stream, and that's going to push in much colder air from up north. With it, it'll be pretty breezy because we've got the change of the air mass moving in. One thing to note, though, it's really going to be chilly at night. The afternoon should be quite nice and seasonal. We need some rain, and we don't have any more rain in the forecast until Sunday night into Monday, and even then it doesn't look like it's going to change this too much. The new drought monitor came out today, and we didn't see any big improvements. Now, I'm not saying that the rain didn't help, but we still need a lot more rain than that to actually see the drought back off. But this was a good amount of rain, and I love this WRAL Weather Watcher picture. Shout out to Griffin in Nashville, North Carolina. Almost 2 inches of rain, and I love that Wolfpack sweatshirt. I'll be rooting them on with you this weekend, but we love to see your pictures. Go to WRAL.com/report it or open up the weather app and click on Report It on your WRAL weather app, and we can share some of your pictures on TV. Not much in the way of rain, just that small chance on Monday, but we've got a 70-degree high next week.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kat. All you dinosaur fans, stick around through the commercial break because scientists in Raleigh just discovered a brand new species. It's kind of like the T-Rex, but cuter. Your one last thing is next. But first, let's get you ready for a beautiful fall weekend that we have ahead of us. There's so much to do out and about. One last thing we simply have to talk about tonight. The biggest dinosaur discovery in years took place right in our backyard. A brand new species of dinosaur has been discovered. Many of you and your family are familiar with the Dueling Dinos exhibit at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences in Raleigh. Well, it's all about a Triceratops and this, what they thought was a young T-Rex who appeared to be fighting when they were fossilized. It's really, really cool stuff, but it turns out that it actually was not a young T-Rex at all. The carnivore in the Dueling Dinos exhibit is actually a different, smaller meat eater, and it's one that we have never seen before, at least knew we were looking at until today. It's called the Nanotyrannus lethaeus. Did I get that right? It's just, let's just call it nano. They were able to confirm this by studying the different parts of the body, the legs, the feet, the arms, the hands. For example, the hands of the nano are larger than the T-Rex hands, even though it's a much smaller dinosaur. This kind of changes everything. Scientists will now have to completely rethink what they thought they knew about the T-Rex.
For the past 3 decades, a large volume of studies that have looked at basic things about T-Rex's biology, like its growth, its locomotion, its diet, its life history, have unintentionally mixed up data from 2 different tyrannosaurs.
How about that? If you want to see this new dinosaur for yourself, you can. It is on display right now over the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences in downtown Raleigh. It is free. You get an up-close look. I mean, it's really, really amazing, and we're so lucky to have it here. We're also lucky to have you watching us here on WRAL tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. You got 10 o'clock on Fox 50, 11 on WRAL. Until then, have a good night.